So our next inductee, the fellow that for many years did the job that I'm doing tonight, Clayton Dreger, Brenda Hoers, assisted by Ron Seifert.
In looking at the inductees over the years, I noticed there are very few media people. There may be more that I don't recognize, but I can actually only spot one. I can't think of a more deserving media person to be inducted into the Manitoba Baseball Hall of Fame than Clayton Dreger. I know a lot of you know Clayton in one way or another over the years, but something you may not know that he was by far the best media that Baseball Manitoba has ever had. He was always the first person who wanted to know who was going to provincials and when the schedules would be posted. He was also the first person to notify me of the scores when I played with the website. He was the first to want to know who was receiving awards or scholarships each year so that he could make sure everyone from his area was interviewed. When I was interviewing Clayton to get more information for his nomination, I asked him about his favorite contribution to sports journalism. He humbly said it was not so much of a contribution, but it was simply doing what journalists do. He loved giving everyday people a voice, especially those who had never been interviewed before. No matter their age, he found real joy and their excitement when he would ask, "Can I talk to you for a minute?" And that, he said, was pretty cool. Over the years, Clayton has shared stories of many baseball players and coaches. That act speaks volumes about the kind of journalist and person he is. As you may all know, Clayton was the MC at these very awards for the past 22 years, as well as being the MC at the Baseball Manitoba Awards for 11 years, alternating in Winnipeg and Brandon. One time, he even drove out to our banquet in Brandon in a snowstorm. We could always count on Clayton to be there to read our 40-page scripts. He never let us down. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming one of the newest inductees into the Manitoba Baseball Hall of Fame, my good friend, Clayton Dreger.
Thank you, Brenda, for those kind words. Ladies and gentlemen, and my fellow inductees, it's hard to put into words how honored and grateful I am to be here tonight at the Access Event Center in Warden, the home of the Manitoba Baseball Hall of Fame's museum. Some of you may know I did spend 20-plus memorable years as the Master of Ceremonies for this induction banquet, and I feel like I'm late to the party because I should have been at the mic 3 hours ago, but I wasn't. My goal was always to say good night and drive home safe before 10 p.m. So Chris, that is now your goal. Tonight I get to say thank you to so many people who said, yes, Clayton, you are worthy to be an honored member of the Manitoba Baseball Hall of Fame. Growing up in my hometown of Morris, I was going to be the next Tom Seaver, Hall of Fame pitcher who helped the New York Mets win the 1969 World Series. I'd call my best friend and ask him to catch for me. Didn't text because it was 1972 and I was 11 years old. He threw a garbage can lid in the backyard, walked back a bunch of steps and threw the mitt. Hit the mitt. Up, down, in, out, looked good. Until I got into a game and a batter stepped into the box and it was not good. Couldn't find the strike zone, and shortly after that, disaster. It was off to center field. So I was getting that. So my short minor baseball career was not Hall of Fame worthy, and we fast forward to the fall of 1984 when I bumped into Radio Southern Manitoba program director Al Friesen at the Morris Curling Club. And little did I know that conversation was instrumental in the start of my 40-year broadcasting career. January 7th of 1985 was the day news director Ken Clausen told me to come into the radio station, and my dream job as a sportscaster began. I covered hockey, curling, football, golf, high school sports, and baseball. With radio stations in Altona, Steinbach, and Boissevain, we covered it all. Red Boyne Senior, Manitoba Senior Baseball League, Southwest, Border East, Border West, Santa Clara, and Manitoba Junior, the Pembina Valley Orioles, Carmen Goldeyes, Altona Bisons, and Carolina Sultans, as well as high school ball. Thank you to every coach, player, and league president who way back in the day answered their phone, and of course over the last number of years replied to my text and said, yes, let's talk. A few years ago, we started airing the South Central Minor Ball Report, the Carolina Minor Ball Report, and the Oil Dome Minor Ball Report. I have to give a huge shout out to Chris Moffat, who is president of South Central Minor Ball, Louis Cote and Don Mayer, the co-presidents of Carolina Minor Ball, and Dallas Williamson, president of Oil Dome Minor Ball. Thank you for your help during bowl season and especially during the provincials. It was such a thrill to track down coaches who watched their teams win a provincial championship banner, to do the interview and hear the excitement in their voices, reflecting on how well their team played, how the bats got hot, the pitchers were clutch, and the defense was awesome. How the players, coaches, and parents celebrated when the final out was made in the gold medal game, a treasured memory that will last forever. And our radio stations got to share that conversation with our listeners, and it was awesome. Thank you to my family who are here tonight. My wife, Debbie, who on January 8th at 2:30 a.m. did not hear front door open. Our oldest Joshua and his wife Alicia, my daughter-in-law, our youngest Hannah, and our middle child Sam, who played Mosquito, Pee-wee, and Bantam baseball with St. Norbert, Winnipeg South. 6 glorious summers of lawn chairs and sunflower seeds. Thank you to my work family, who I miss so much. Thank you to Golden West Patriarch Elmer Hildebrand and President Brett Adnam and my former boss Chris Sumner. I loved my job. Tom Hanks says, there's no crying in baseball. I cried a lot the morning of January 7th. Chair Dan Bustrike and the hardworking directors of the Manitoba Baseball Hall of Fame, the Morton Committee, and Joe Witcher, Jim Mutchison, and Thomas Kichkowski. Thank you. This is a special evening. 2 decades as MC, and I know how much work goes into making this night so memorable for the inductees and their families. The Manitoba Baseball Hall of Fame's museum is a treasure. And finally, my dear friends at Baseball Manitoba, Executive Directors Morgan DePena, Jason Miller. When it got warm and the snow started to melt, it was a great way to start the ball season, hearing your voices on the radio. Media and Communications Coordinator Haley Hayward, thank you for the great pick in the program. It was cool when Jim Mutchison sent out the email to the individual inductees reminding them to get their picture in, and that we were the first. My friend Brenda Horace, who hired me to MC Baseball Manitoba's awards banquet many years ago, and thankfully typed up and double-spaced my 38-page script that I read for so many years. You made me sound great, and I appreciate it. Provincial championship weekends are so important, and thanks to you and Haley, we're able to go on the radio Monday mornings and give gold medal results of all your provincial championships. I remember the day that Brenda told me that Baseball Manitoba was going to forward my nomination for the Manitoba Baseball Hall of Fame, and I just sat there and said, you do know covering baseball for our radio stations, that's what I do. And Brenda said, well, you do it better than anyone else. And after hearing that, all I could say was thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for this great night, and what a thrill to be recognized as an honored member of the Manitoba Baseball Hall of Fame, and to my fellow inductees, congratulations as well. Have a great night.